Good morning and welcome to episode 128 of Duval Rundown. My name is Gus Logue. Today I'm joined by my regular Tuesday guest, Hays Carlyon, who was out last week. Hays, hope it was a nice little staycation for you, not too rainy or too buggy. You can catch Hays on the show that he hosts, the Frangie Show, 4 to 6 p.m. each weekday afternoon on your drive home, 92.5 and 1010XL. Hays, welcome back. Glad to have you. How was your time off?
Thank you, Gus. I missed you. Yes, I missed our talk.
I missed you too, my guy.
Yeah, it was great. I had, good to recharge the battery and everything. So yeah, it was a great week, but good to be back talking Jaguars football with you.
Absolutely. Now, I did see that you made it out to rookie minicamp. I don't know if you're technically still taking time off or not, but today we're going to preview the Jacksonville Jaguars' NFL schedule release. The full schedule, including the Jaguars' schedule, will be fully announced on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. We do already know of one game that the Jaguars will be playing, one specific opponent for a specific week. So we'll get to that shortly. But first, Hays, since I did see you out there at minicamp, I went over a couple of my takeaways on yesterday's show, but I didn't know if there was anything that really stood out to you, or if there wasn't, then that's totally understandable because it's just rookie minicamp. But I guess to me, my biggest thing was that I think Eli Pankold, the Duke undrafted wide receiver, has a pretty solid shot to make the roster. I like his chances to potentially, quote unquote, lock down that wide receiver 5 spot. Any takeaways that you had from rookie minicamp before we move on to the schedule?
With me, it's more their personalities, because it's just hard to get a sense of, really hardcore football things. I think in that setting, it's basically a walkthrough, and obviously, other than a handful of guys, these are guys that aren't going to really be able to make a living at the playing this sport, at least at the NFL level. So I didn't really, in terms of like football takeaways, the speed translated, I thought, for their fast guys, Hunter, Ransaw, Tootin, that showed up as you would expect, which is good. And it certainly looks like they've incorporated a lot of speed in this draft class. Tootin had a drop coming out of the backfield, catching, on a basically just a, what would have been a very easy catch. He dropped it, but then he came back and 5 minutes later and made a difficult catch, kind of having to pick the ball up off of his shoestrings. So, again, it's from a football standpoint, it's hard to draw a lot out of it. But I do think you can get a sense of, the people that they've brought in. When you talk to them, certainly Travis Hunter met with us, met with reporters after practice. And, again, I think you just saw more examples of his humble nature and a genuine nature. Like this is something that it's not really like a big deal, but it's something that caught my attention and I was impressed by. So I was doing a one-on-one with Caleb Ransaw. So I asked Travis Hunter about Caleb Ransaw, like either as a player or as a personality. I didn't know if they'd ever, maybe at some point, been introduced to each other, maybe, in the couple days they've been in Jacksonville, if Hunter had gotten a chance. And to his credit, he was like, no, I don't have anything for you on him, which is good. I'd rather that than, give me a 30-second. Oh, he's just such a great guy. But they're, he's just sort of, talking out of his, out of thin air. So I appreciated that. Caleb Ransaw was fantastic. Really upbeat demeanor, confident, friendly. So again, those are the sort of things that, at least at this point, I can start to kind of get a sense of is more kind of the personality of the athlete, not so much, how they're going to be at the NFL level. But I was impressed. I've been impressed with Travis Hunter every time he's met with us. He just seems to, obviously everybody sees the radiant smile, and obviously, he's gone viral this week for the comments that the lady that he met on the airplane shared on social media. So I do think that's important. Like, obviously, the task is to win games. But when you're investing the second overall pick, next year's one, in a player, you do want it to all mesh. You want it to be the total package. And I don't think Travis Hunter is ever going to give this franchise any headaches in terms of his demeanor. And that is important. And obviously, I mean, if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be a star receiver. And you hope be able to give them something defensively as well. But at the very least, be a very impactful offensive weapon for them. And then again, to meet Caleb Ransaw, it's just a 2.5-minute interview, but you do get a sense of, it was hot and you're out there for a couple of hours, and these guys are sort of having to wait around, to do the interviews, and it's nice when you meet a rookie and that seems very excited and cooperative and things like that. So again, does it help you beat the Titans? It probably not, but it is good to see particularly when the general manager has talked about wanting to find guys of really high character. So that part stood out. Kaiser, I think, looks the part. I think he's impressive. He's somebody that I think is going to really push. So, I mean, the buzz, obviously we talk on the sidelines to people while we're out there. So, I would say, look, obviously Travis Hunter is going to be I think he's going to be a rookie sensation for the Jaguars. So yeah. I don't have if he stays healthy, I don't have a lot of issues with saying that Travis Hunter is going to immediately be one of the best players on the team. But then you go down the line. I think Ransaw's a starting safety week 1. I think Tootin will end up being the most effective ball carrier. I think he'll probably end up leading the Jaguars in touches. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that role early on. It may not be week 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if pretty early on Tootin is the featured back over Etienne and Bigsby. Milam there's no way he's not going to be a starter, probably at left guard. And I think Kaiser has a great chance to push for maybe the Ventrell Miller spot, with Oluwakan and Devin Lloyd. So, I think the early indications are they really did a great job with this draft class, and it's going to produce, 4-5 really good immediate contributors for them. So, that's all exciting.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. I swear I've upgraded to the highest level Wi-Fi possible in my building. It's still giving me issues, so I gotta find someone to call. So I apologize for that.
It's fine. I think your Wi-Fi probably got tired of me talking. I'm you're rambling for 5 minutes, and I think your Wi-Fi was like, I can't listen to this guy anymore. So I'm logging us out of here, which I don't blame your Wi-Fi for that. So anyway,
I'm sure that wasn't it. I agree with a lot of what you said. First of all, if you want to watch the Caleb Ransaw interview that Hays did with the Jaguars, his 88th overall rookie pick, make sure to check out our YouTube page, 1010XL Jaguars. If you're watching this video on YouTube right now, then it's the same channel. So it's totally recommend checking that out. But I agree with you. It's like I said this caveat like 3 different times on this show, like where they were in shorts and T-shirts. So I don't want to put too much stock onto what happened on the football field. But I thought the vibe, especially of the players, but in general, the vibe was really great. It was pretty refreshing to see Liam Cohen actually make corrections to players and mistakes and stuff like that on the field in real time instead of waiting around to the practice field. It was also refreshing seeing the general manager like out there, but keeping his distance and not trying to coach up defensive backs and stuff like that. And so I think just generally it was cool to see like a bunch of new faces again, like not just the players, obviously that was exciting, but even just like equipment managers and assistant coaches and positional coaches. It's pretty cool to see them all hit the field, and for like you can actually see the newness with your eyes. And so,
well, and I think those are all really good observations, because I came across with the same impression, and it almost felt like last year, particularly last year, there were just people putting up stiff arms at every turn. On Saturday, Liam Cohen is clearly calling the plays. Clearly calling the play. There's no mystery. There's no, hey, let me hide behind this guy.
yeah,
So, or, let's try to confuse people on who's doing what. He's calling the plays. To your point, Gladstone is, spent the first half of the practice up on the, the balcony area, which is where he should be.
yeah.
He needs to be present, but he doesn't need to be walking around with a whistle around his neck like he's Bill Parcells. And he came down at the end of towards the end of the practice, but he's just sitting there kind of talking with Baselli and other people, and he's there. He needs to be there, but he doesn't need to be an active participant in the practice. So it is refreshing. I just think that the last administration put up, and not just Balky, but Peterson as well, put up so many walls of resistance and just created all these layers of crap. And you just didn't need any of that. And it ended up being very counterproductive, I think, distracting. And it was just, I mean, players are smart. I mean, it's like, what are we doing? I mean, just tell the media that Press Taylor's calling plays. How hard is this? Instead, it becomes a 9-month, mystery wrapped inside of a riddle, and it doesn't have to be that. So it does. I do think that means something. I mean, when everybody is rowing in the same direction, when there aren't distractions that are, man-made by their own doing, it just seems like it's a very easy, free-flowing operation. Everybody's on the same page. There's transparency. They're not trying to fool anybody with anything. And I do think that'll make a big difference in this team's, preparedness for week 1.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. Let's move on to our main topic for today, the NFL schedule release. Here's what we know right now about the Jaguars' 2025 schedule. They're going to obviously play the 3 other teams from their own division, the AFC South. They'll play the Titans, the Texans, and the Colts twice each, once home and one away. They'll also play each team from the AFC West, each team from the NFC West, and then 3 other teams that also finished third place in their respective divisions in 2024. That would be the Panthers, the Jets, and the Bengals. According to Warren Sharp of Sharp Football Analysis, the Jaguars have the 6th easiest projected schedule for 2020 according to Vegas's win totals. And so according to if you're using last year's team records, and the Jags have the 9th easiest schedule, but it's certainly better to kind of factor in offseason transactions. And so based on, again, Vegas's win totals, the Jaguars have the 6th easiest schedule. The amount of travel and whether there's rest advantages and disadvantages could maybe factor into that a little bit. But I will also add that according to Sharp, the Jaguars had the 5th easiest schedule last year. And so it's certainly nice that on paper they have an easy schedule, but it's not like there's going to be a huge jump compared to last year. I think that's mostly when it's important to talk about strength of schedule, is when there's going to be a big leap of either really hard schedule or really soft schedule compared to the previous season. And so, again, the Jaguars will probably have a relatively easy schedule compared to most other teams, but relative to last year, it's about the same. And then the newest thing that we learned just this morning on Good Morning Football, NFL Network show, it was announced that the Jaguars will be hosting the Los Angeles Rams in Week 7 at Wembley Stadium. The game will start at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And so we knew that the Rams, because they're in the NFC West, would be facing the Jaguars. But now we know that the Rams are the Jaguars' international game opponent. This year, the Jaguars only have one international game, and it's against the Rams, as opposed to the past 2 years when they faced 2 different teams in consecutive weeks in London. So, Hays, anything else that you want to add in terms of what we know before the full schedule is released tomorrow? but more so. And any thoughts off the bat about the Jaguars drawing the Rams as their international opponent?
Yeah, I think the Rams is fine. Obviously they only basically come to Jacksonville once every 8 years. So, that's kind of an issue in terms of, so it'll be, again, assuming they never match up in the 17 game format, or when they go to 18 games, the format will change. But in this current model, so it's going to be a very long time between the Rams coming to Jacksonville, but I don't think there's that many fans that really care too much about that. I think it is ironic that it's the Rams, since, that's basically the entire, copy of what the Jaguars have done. So it's kind of, from that standpoint, there'll be a lot of storylines. I think it hits at a good time. It's week 7. I think they will have the week 8 bye, would be my guess. And so that's always a great spot for your bye. And really the only thing I think in terms of mystery with the schedule is, because they go to Arizona, Vegas, Denver, and San Fran, are there back-to-back games, out west? And did the Jaguars ask the league for that? From my understanding is that they did not ask for that, and that that they probably will just make 4 trips west and not stay over. I thought it might make sense for them to request it, particularly if they could get like a week 2, week 3, back in the 2013 season when they played week 2 at Oakland and then week 3 at Seattle. Because now the preseason, the way it is now with just the 3 games, you really get a pretty good break for your starters, from the second preseason game. No one really plays in the third. And then you get like this 12-day break, basically. So everybody gets a chance to kind of reconnect with their families after training camp and kind of get a little bit of a break before week 1. So I was looking at it like, well, then maybe you want to have a week early in September where, you are gone, you play your 2 games, and maybe you get that, bonding experience for your team. But it doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen. I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, they still could have back-to-back road games. The league just may have no way around it. But it doesn't seem like the Jaguars are hoping that happens. So, that'll be interesting, because obviously you've got the London game, as you mentioned, and then you're going to have 4 games where you've got a pretty sizable, plane trip to get to your destination. But in terms of the opponents, I think the schedule sets up fine. Like you said, when we see it, we'll immediately go through and see how many teams have a bye before they play the Jaguars, and if there is any, rest advantage, disadvantage to it. But I think the biggest thing is you don't want to have the week 4 bye, and you don't want to have the week 14 bye that, I was surprised the league had last year for so many teams. If you're a fantasy football player, there were guys on bye weeks in the first round of your playoff games last year, which is crazy. But it's also crazy for real football when you haven't had a break and you go training camp and then play like 13 straight weeks. So, you don't want to have that. So to have the week 7 London game, I would imagine, the league usually says, hey, do you want your bye after London? And with it being a week 7 game, I would think the Jaguars would say, absolutely, we would like the week 8 bye. And that's, that's a coveted spot. So that will certainly help this team.
Is it the past 2 years? I think they did not have a bye after immediately returning from London, even though they spent correct. 2 weeks there. Which, looking back on it, I definitely was like, that's crazy that they had a 2-week international trip and then weren't awarded a bye week after that. But now in retrospect, having 2 games in London was super advantageous to the Jaguars, at least for that second game, being able to already be across the pond and be adjusted to the time zone and have that rest advantage over the team that's coming in to face them for that second leg. The Jags just dominated the Bills in 2023 and then the Patriots last year in 2024 in that second leg of their London trip. And so maybe because the NFL recognized that rest advantage that the Jaguars had, they weren't necessarily as willing to give them a bye right after they returned from London. Maybe even the team didn't necessarily want a bye that soon. But yeah, I agree with you where it makes sense this year for the Jaguars to get that Week 8 bye when they return from London. I think it's pretty cool that the Rams are going to be the team that they face in London just to get more visibility on that game, because I think to everyone in Jacksonville and probably everyone in Los Angeles too, it would be an interesting matchup considering that both Liam Gladstone and Liam Gladstone, is that what I said? Liam Cohen and James Gladstone have a chance to beat their former bosses in the first year of them being first-time head coach and general manager, respectively. And so the fact that there's going to be not just a national audience, but an international audience also paying attention to that game, I think is pretty cool. And that could maybe be a potential sign of like, okay, like the Jaguars are a force to be reckoned with and a team that the rest of the league needs to take seriously if they end up winning that game in a primetime slot, even if it starts in the morning for us. I feel like that's technically a primetime game for them since they'll be the only team or the only game on during that time slot. And so I'm excited for the Week 7 stretch. I do think that generally speaking, the schedule is harder than it seems like on paper. I think especially when you consider you can go to like specific teams and see like the Bengals last year, they had that great stretch at the end of the season, but if they're a bit healthier and they have like their fearsome trio on offense for a full 17 games, then they're going to be a lot better than they were a year ago. The Niners had a ton of injuries last year. They'll probably be better than they were a year ago.
Have you seen their schedule?
The Niners? I know that that's supposed to be the easiest in the league, but I haven't actually looked at it.
It's the easiest schedule I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Go look at the opponents that the 49ers play this season. Well, they get the AFC South, which is dreadful. They get the NFC South, which is pretty dreadful. And then there are like 3 other games in terms of the specifics for finishing last in their division. It's like they get the Giants, Cleveland, Chicago. I mean, San Francisco literally plays 17 games, and none of them are, I would say, against any of the top 5 teams in the league, and maybe even further out. And that depends on how you feel about the Rams and some of the teams in their division, Seattle, things like that. But, I mean, in terms of dodging the heavyweights, I mean, San Francisco doesn't play anybody. I was shocked when I saw how soft their schedule is.
Hey, I'm sorry again about that.
No problem.
I clearly need to do some troubleshooting. But let's just go ahead and wrap up before my internet dies again.
Okay.
So I guess my main takes before the schedule does get released tomorrow on Wednesday at 8:00 p.m. Eastern is that the Jaguars are actually not necessarily getting an advantage by going from 2 international games to 1, just because that second leg was such a big advantage for them, getting that rest advantage over whoever had to come in and face them. But obviously, and then like it doesn't even really impact like how Jaguars fans should feel about London either, because it's not like each game were 2 home games. Like it was 1 home game and 1 away game, and now the Jaguars, the game that they face against the Rams is still going to be counted as a home game. And so going from 2 London games to 1, I think is like not as great as a lot of, I guess, more casual Jaguars fans would probably think. And then I also think the schedule is a lot harder than it looks on paper. Again, 6th easiest schedule according to Vegas win projections for the 2025 season. But there's a lot of ascending teams, I think, and I think that like the NFC North is definitely considered one of, if not the best divisions in the NFL. But I think the AFC West and the NFC West are both like right there behind the NFC North and the AFC North, I guess, too. But so the North and the West in both conferences are really strong. And so I think it's going to be a little bit tougher than some people might think for the Jaguars this season. They also had a relatively easy schedule last year, so it's not like it's going to be a huge improvement for strength of schedule. So yeah, any other final thoughts or even questions that you're looking forward to have answered tomorrow night, Hays, before we get out of here?
Yeah, I think just looking at the bye weeks, how many teams have a bye before they play the Jaguars? You don't want that number to be higher than 2, and ideally just 1. So that and obviously the primetime games. Now, I don't anticipate the Jaguars really having many of those. So and they may only have the London game is the kind of exclusive window game. But it'd be exciting, and I hope for the fans that they do have some primetime games and get one at home. But that's something we'll always look at. But I don't have high expectations that's going to be a very high number, if any.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Hays, appreciate you so much, especially sticking by me through my internet problems.
No problem.
Thank you, as always, for coming on the show. Again, I would totally recommend the interview that Hays did with Caleb Bransall. You can check that out on the 1010XL Jaguars YouTube page. I will be back here tomorrow at 9:04 a.m. Eastern, hopefully with a better Wi-Fi connection. But I'll be joined by Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times Union. So really looking forward to staying down with Deem, talking ball with him. So yeah, until then, that's tomorrow morning. Appreciate Hays, appreciate all of our watchers and our listeners, especially our commenters, especially the ones asking if I was okay when the stream went down. All right, y'all, have a good one. See you next time.